Blood samples covered the examination table in the veterinary lab. Director Halvin stared at them with all four of his hands pressed against his head, a gesture of extreme stress among his people. 3 weeks ago, the razor spine had torn through 2 handlers like they were made of paper. Last week, it had sent another to the medical wing with puncture wounds that went clean through his protective suit. The creature was supposed to be the crown jewel of the orbital station menagerie, a rare specimen from one of the galaxy's most dangerous planets. Instead, it had become a liability that threatened to shut down the entire facility. Another specialist declined, his assistant informed him, her voice trembling. "That makes 11, Halvin wanted to scream. The Galactic Conservation Board would arrive in 2 months to review their operations. If they couldn't demonstrate proper care for the razor spine, they would lose their accreditation. Worse, they would have to euthanize the creature. All that money, all that effort, all those injuries for nothing. His communicator buzzed. A message appeared. Contract specialist arriving at Docking Bay 7. Halvin rushed through the curved corridors of the station, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. He hadn't requested another specialist. The last one had taken one look at the security footage and left on the next shuttle. When he reached the docking bay, a single human stood there with a worn backpack and a relaxed posture that seemed completely out of place. The human was smaller than Halvin expected. Humans were supposed to be these towering warriors from a death world, but this one looked ordinary. Scars covered his bare forearms, some old and faded, others more recent. His dark hair was messy and his clothes were practical rather than impressive. "Ben Torres," the human said, extending his hand. "Your colleague at Station Kepler sent my information." Halvin hesitantly touched the human's hand, mimicking the greeting gesture he had seen in cultural databases. "I wasn't informed. We have a very dangerous situation here. Perhaps there was a miscommunication." "No miscommunication." Ben adjusted his backpack. "I handle animals that other people can't work with. Heard you've got a razor spine that's causing problems." "Causing problems?" Halvin's voice rose an octave. "It has hospitalized 6 staff members. It attacks anything that enters its enclosure. It rams the barriers when anyone walks past. We've tried every standard protocol. Sedation only makes it worse when it wakes up. Behavioral conditioning has no effect. The creature is fundamentally aggressive." Ben's expression didn't change. "Can I see it?" Halvin led him through 3 security checkpoints. Other staff members stopped to stare at the human walking calmly through their facility. Everyone knew about the razor spine. Everyone had seen the footage of it attacking. The idea of anyone volunteering to work with it seemed insane. The observation deck overlooked a massive enclosure designed to mimic the razor spine's natural habitat. Rocky outcroppings rose from a sandy floor. Artificial sunlight provided warmth. A pool of water sat in one corner untouched. The creature itself paced along the far wall, its 6 legs moving in an agitated rhythm. Crystalline spines covered its back, each one as long as Halvin's arm. Its bioluminescent markings flashed red and orange, colors that every species in the galaxy recognized as warnings. "Magnificent," Ben said quietly. Halvin pulled up a holographic display. "This is from 5 days ago." The footage showed a handler entering the enclosure with food. The razor spine had been across the space, seemingly calm. The moment the handler set down the feeding container, the creature charged. It covered 30 meters in seconds. The handler barely made it to the safety door. The razor spine slammed into the barrier hard enough to crack it. And this is from yesterday. Another video played. A different handler, this time using a remote delivery system. The razor spine attacked the mechanical arm, shattering it into pieces. Ben watched both videos twice. "What's its feeding schedule?" "Twice daily. Standard carnivore nutrition blocks supplemented with protein samples from its home world." "Enrichment activities?" Halvin's membranes fluttered with confusion. "It's a predator from a Class 9 death world. Enrichment would only stimulate its aggressive tendencies." "How long has it been here?" 4 months. "How old is it?" "Our best estimate is 3 to 4 cycles." "Young adult." Ben turned back to the window. The razor spine had stopped pacing. It stood perfectly still, staring at the observation deck. At him. "It's not aggressive. It's terrified." Halvin couldn't help the laugh that escaped him. "That creature weighs 800 kilograms. Its jaws can crush titanium alloy. It has killed prey twice its size on its home world. It is not terrified. Look at the spine positioning." Ben pointed. See how they're all extended straight up? That's not a threat display. That's defensive posturing. And the pacing pattern, always along the walls, never through the center of the space, it's trying to find an exit. The way it attacked that handler, it didn't pursue. It charged, made contact, and retreated immediately. That's fear response, not predatory behavior. You're saying 6 handlers were injured because the creature is scared. I'm saying a young predator was taken from its family, brought to a strange place with strange sounds and strange smells, and every time something approaches, it panics. You're not dealing with aggression. You're dealing with trauma. Halvin felt his body temperature drop. Trauma. They had treated the razor spine like a monster when it was actually a victim. All their protocols, all their procedures, they had made everything worse. Can you help it? He asked. Ben was still watching the creature. The razor spine watched him back, its bioluminescence slowly shifting from red to yellow, a curious color rather than a threatening one. I can try, Ben said, but we do this my way. No sedation unless medically necessary. No restraints. No forced interactions. And I need changes to the enclosure. This place looks like a prison cell. You want to make it more comfortable? It attacks everyone, because everyone treats it like a monster. Ben finally turned to face Halvin. I need to go in there. Absolutely not. You'll be killed. Not if I'm right about this. Ben's voice carried absolute certainty. Set up a safety protocol if it makes you feel better. But I need to meet this animal properly. Not through glass. Not through barriers. Face to face. Halvin looked at the human, then at the razor spine, then back at the human. This was insanity. This was suicide. This was also his last option. Tomorrow, he said. I need time to prepare the medical teams and override safety protocols. Ben nodded and shouldered his backpack. Tomorrow, then. And director? Stop calling it aggressive. Words matter. If you keep thinking of it as a monster, you'll never see the scared kid underneath. As Ben walked away, Halvin looked back at the razor spine. It had laid down, its spine slowly retracting. Just a scared kid, the human had said. Perhaps humans understood monsters better than anyone else. After all, they came from a world full of them. 20 hours of watching the razor spine had taught Ben more than 4 months of incident reports ever could. He sat cross-legged on the observation deck floor with a notebook and pen. Analog tools that made some of the station staff whisper about primitive human technology. But screens glared and made noise. Paper stayed quiet. The creature moved in patterns. Every 47 minutes it completed a circuit of the enclosure's perimeter. Every time it passed the water feature, it slowed but never drank. 3 times per hour, it scraped its claws against the eastern wall where the artificial rock met metal plating. The sound echoed through the space, a horrible screeching that made everyone wince. Everyone except Ben. He recognized it. Comfort behavior. Like a dog scratching at a door or a cat needing a blanket. The razor spine was trying to recreate something familiar. Dr. Yenapros arrived during hour 19 with a thermal container and 2 cups. She was young for a senior xenobiologist, her carapace still showing the bright colors of youth rather than the muted tones of age. She had been watching Ben almost as intently as he watched the creature. You haven't eaten, she said, pouring something that smelled like burnt flowers into a cup. Thanks. Ben accepted it even though he had no idea what it was. Politeness crossed species barriers better than most things. He took a careful sip. Not terrible. Sweet with a bitter aftertaste. Yenna settled beside him, her multiple joints folding in ways that looked uncomfortable but clearly weren't. You've been documenting behaviors. Everything means something. Ben gestured at the razor spine. See how its head dips every time it passes the feeding area? Not eating, just acknowledging the food is there. That's anxiety behavior. It doesn't trust that the food will keep coming. We feed it consistently, same time every day. But every time you feed it, someone enters the enclosure, someone it perceives as a threat. So feeding time equals danger time. The food itself has become a stress trigger. Yenna's antennae lowered, a sign of distress. We're harming it by trying to care for it. You didn't know. Most species in the galaxy didn't evolve alongside predators like humans did. You see teeth and claws and assume violence. We see teeth and claws and think about intention behind them. The razor spine suddenly stopped moving. Its spines flattened against its body and its bioluminescence went completely dark. Ben immediately focused on what had changed. A maintenance drone had entered the adjacent corridor, its engine humming at a frequency just below human hearing. That sound, he said. How often do those drones run? Every 6 hours. Automated cleaning and inspection. The razor spine backed into the far corner, pressing itself against the wall. Its breathing had accelerated, visible in the rapid rise and fall of its thorax. That frequency is probably similar to something from its homeworld. A predator maybe, or a natural threat. Ben made a note. We need to change the drone schedules or route them away from this section. For one animal? Ben looked at her directly. If you want this to work, yes. Every detail matters. This isn't about following a standard care guide. This is about understanding a specific individual and what they need to feel safe. Security Chief Brond arrived with 3 guards, all armed. The Torek was massive even by his species standards, with armor plating that looked like it could stop a shuttle crash. His translator gave his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the floor. The director has approved your request, Brond said. Each word carried disapproval. Against my strong recommendation. If you die in there, it will be on record that I objected. Noted. Ben stood and stretched. His back popped loudly, earning startled looks from everyone. Human bodies were fragile compared to most species, held together with easily damaged bones and soft tissue. The fact that humans had become apex predators on Earth despite those limitations fascinated xenobiologists and terrified security personnel in equal measure. Weapons will be trained. On the creature at all times, Brond continued. One hostile move and we neutralize it. No weapons, Ben said firmly. That's not negotiable. Then neither am I. Ben met the security chief's 3 eyes without flinching. The creature will sense the threat. Predators always do. You point weapons at it and I guarantee an aggressive response. You want me to do this, we do it my way. The standoff lasted 30 seconds. Finally, Brond's armor plates shifted, a sign of grudging acceptance. Stun weapons only. Non-lethal protocols. But they stay ready. Acceptable. Ben grabbed his backpack. Inside were containers of fresh meat, actual animal protein rather than the synthesized blocks the facility used. He had spent most of his payment advance on it. Worth every credit if this worked. The enclosure had multiple entry points. Ben chose the one farthest from where the razor spine currently crouched. The door slid open with a hiss that made the creature's head snap around. For a moment, they stared at each other across 50 meters of artificial habitat. Ben stepped inside. The door sealed behind him. The temperature was warmer than the rest of the station, set to match the razor spine's homeworld. The air tasted different too, processed through filters to replicate atmospheric composition. Under his feet, the sand was fine and pale, imported at enormous expense. The razor spine rose to full height. Its spines extended. Bioluminescence flared red. Ben sat down, not crouched, ready to move. Not standing, prepared to run. He sat cross-legged in the sand like he was settling in for a picnic. He opened his backpack slowly, pulled out a container of meat and set it beside him. Not between himself and the creature. Not as an offering. Just placing it down. Then he waited. The razor spine took a step forward. Then another. Its movements were careful, testing. The claws on its 6 feet could disembowel him with a single swipe. Its jaws could crush his skull like an eggshell. Every person watching from the observation deck held their breath. Ben breathed normally. He didn't stare directly at the creature. That would be challenging. Instead, he looked slightly to the side, aware of its position but not confrontational. His hands rested loosely on his knees. His posture radiated calm. The razor spine circled him at a distance of 10 meters. Then 8, then 5. It stopped directly in front of him, so close that Ben could feel the heat radiating from its body. This close, he could see the details. Scarring around its jaw from fighting, a chip in one of its crystalline spines, the way its eyes tracked his every breath. Ben spoke quietly. I know you're scared. This place is wrong. The sounds are wrong. The smells are wrong. Everything feels like danger. His voice stayed level, conversational. But I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just here to sit with you. That's all. Just sit and let you know that not everything here is a threat. The razor spine's bioluminescence flickered, red to orange, orange to yellow, yellow to the faintest hint of blue. Curiosity. Ben allowed himself a small smile. First step complete. 53 minutes passed before the razor spine moved again. Ben's legs had gone numb 20 minutes ago, but he didn't shift position. Movement meant unpredictability. Unpredictability meant threat. So he sat still and let his circulation suffer. The creature lowered its head slowly until its snout was level with Ben's face. This close he could count the sensory pits along its jaw, organs that detected heat and chemical signatures. It was reading him, learning his scent, categorizing him as prey, predator, or something else entirely. Ben kept his breathing steady. Eye contact was still too much, so he looked at the creature's shoulder instead. A submissive gesture in many species, but not weak. Respectful. Aware. The razor spine's tongue flicked out, tasting the air between them. Its spines remained extended but no longer rigid with tension. Yellow bioluminescence pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat made visible. "Good," Ben murmured. "You're doing great." Behind them, someone in the observation deck made a noise. The razor spine's attention snapped toward the sound, spine stiffening. Ben didn't turn to look. If he broke the moment, they would lose all progress. "It's okay," he said softly, drawing the creature's focus back. "Just other people. They're scared of you, you know. They don't understand that you're scared too." The razor spine's eyes returned to him. They were complex, multi-layered like a cat's, but with an intelligence that went deeper. This was no simple predator operating on instinct alone. This was a thinking, feeling being capable of making choices. Ben reached down slowly, picked up a piece of meat from the container and tossed it gently to the side. Not at the creature, not as a bribe, just placing food in the environment. The razor spine tracked the meat's arc but didn't move toward it. "Not hungry?" Ben asked conversationally. "That's fine. Food isn't why I'm here anyway." Another 10 minutes crawled past. Ben's right foot had progressed from numb to painful, but he ignored it. The razor spine shifted its weight between its 6 legs, processing something. Making a decision. Then it took a step closer. Now they were within touching distance. The creature's breath washed over Ben's face, warm and smelling of copper. Its jaws could close around his entire head. One bite, and this experiment would end in the worst possible way. Ben slowly lifted his right hand, palm down, fingers relaxed. He moved it forward at a pace that would bore anyone watching, centimeter by centimeter, until his hand was extended between them. An offering, an invitation. The razor spine went completely still. Every muscle locked. This was the critical moment. This was where trust either formed or shattered. Ben waited. The creature lowered its head. Its snout touched Ben's palm. The contact lasted 3 seconds. Then the razor spine jerked back, spines flaring, bioluminescence strobing red. But it didn't attack. It backed away 5 meters and watched him with what Ben could only describe as confusion. He lowered his hand slowly back to his knee. "That was brave," he said. "Really brave. Thank you." The razor spine tilted its head, a gesture that looked remarkably like curiosity. It took 1 step forward. Stopped. Another step. Stopped. Testing the space between them. Ben remained motionless. This time, when the creature approached, it moved around him in a slow circle. Ben felt its breath on the back of his neck, felt the displacement of air as its massive body passed within centimeters. Every instinct screamed at him to turn, to watch, to track the threat. He didn't. Turning would show fear, would break the trust they were building. The razor spine completed its circle and sat down 3 meters away, facing him. Its spines slowly retracted. Its bioluminescence faded to a soft green. Contentment. Ben allowed himself to breathe normally again. "We're going to be friends," he told the creature. "I think you need a friend right now." Movement in his peripheral vision. The razor spine was lowering itself fully to the ground, head resting on its front legs. It looked exhausted. The aggressive displays, the constant vigilance, the perpetual stress, it had all taken a toll. "Yeah," Ben said quietly. "You can rest now. I'll watch." And he did. He sat there while the razor spine's breathing deepened and slowed. while its eyes half closed and its body relaxed in ways the staff had never seen. For the first time since arriving at the facility, the creature slept deeply. An hour later, Ben carefully stood. His legs screamed in protest. The razor spine's eyes opened immediately, tracking his movement, but without alarm. Ben picked up his backpack, left the container of meat where it was, and walked slowly toward the exit. The door opened. He stepped through. The door closed. Immediately, Yenna was beside him with a medical scanner. Your heart rate was dangerously elevated, and your leg circulation was compromised. Why didn't you move? Because moving would have broken trust. Ben accepted a water container from someone and drank deeply. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. How long was I in there? 1 hour and 47 minutes, Halvin said. His voice carried an emotion Ben couldn't identify. You made physical contact with a creature that has injured 6 handlers. It let me touch it, Ben corrected. There's a difference. I didn't force anything. I offered, and it chose to accept. This is impossible. Braun's translator somehow conveyed disbelief. Razor spines are classified as non-domesticable. Their psychology doesn't allow for interspecies bonding. Maybe they've never met the right species before. Ben watched through the observation window as the razor spine stood and approached the meat he had left. It ate slowly, calmly, without the frantic aggression that had characterized its previous feeding sessions. Fear makes every creature act against their nature. Remove the fear, and you see who they really are. Yenna was recording everything on her datapad. How did you know it wouldn't attack? I didn't, Ben admitted. But I know predator behavior. Real aggression looks different, feels different. That creature wasn't trying to hurt anyone. It was trying to make everyone go away so it could feel safe. Once I showed it I wasn't a threat. Once it understood I was choosing to be vulnerable around it, the dynamic changed. Vulnerability is strength, Yenna said softly. That's very human. Ben smiled. We learned a long time ago that the strongest bonds form when both sides lower their defenses. That's true whether you're bonding with a dog or a razor spine. Down in the enclosure, the creature finished eating and returned to the spot where Ben had sat. It circled 3 times and laid down, spines fully retracted, bioluminescence a peaceful blue, waiting for tomorrow. 14 days changed everything. Ben entered the enclosure each morning and left each evening. In between, he and the razor spine built something that xenobiologists would spend years trying to understand. The creature no longer retreated when he arrived. Instead, it approached immediately, greeting him with a low, rumbling sound that might have been threatening in another context, but was clearly affectionate now. The enclosure looked different, too. Halvin had approved every modification Ben requested. Climbing structures now occupied the eastern section, complex arrangements of natural materials that the razor spine scaled with surprising agility. A proper water feature replaced the decorative pool, complete with current and depth variation. Most importantly, they had added dirt. Real soil from the razor spine's homeworld. Expensive to transport and difficult to maintain, but essential. The creature spent hours digging and rearranging it, creating burrows and wallows. It's nesting, Yenna observed from the observation deck. She visited daily now, abandoning her other projects to document Ben's work. Razor spines only exhibit nesting behaviors when they feel safe enough to consider reproduction. Not reproduction, Ben corrected gently. He was teaching her to read the subtle cues. Look at the burrow positioning. Too shallow for eggs. This is comfort nesting, like a dog circling before lying down. It's making the space feel like home. Below them, the razor spine emerged from a burrow and immediately looked up at the observation deck. At Ben specifically. It made the rumbling sound again. It knows you're here, Yenna said, wonder in her voice. Even through the barrier. We've built a routine. It expects to see me at certain times. Ben checked his datapad. Ready for today's session? They descended together. Over the past week, Ben had started bringing Yenna into the enclosure during his visits. The first time, the razor spine had been wary. It had positioned itself between Ben and the new person, protective rather than aggressive. Now it tolerated Yenna's presence, though it still watched her carefully. The door opened. Ben entered first, Yenna 3 steps behind. The razor spine approached but stopped 5 meters away, focused on Yenna. Its spines were relaxed, but its bioluminescence flickered yellow. Uncertain. Let it come to you, Ben said quietly. Don't approach. Don't reach out. Just exist in the space. Yenna stood motionless while Ben moved to check the feeding area. The razor spine tracked him briefly, then returned its attention to the nervous Queelith. It took 1 step closer, then another. It's okay, Yenna whispered more to herself than the creature. The razor spine's tongue flicked out, tasting her scent. It circled her once, assessing. Then it did something remarkable. It lowered its head and bumped gently against her side. The same greeting gesture it used with Ben. Yenna's antennae went rigid with shock. It touched me. It accepted you, Ben said, smiling. You're pack now. The word hung in the air. Pack. A human concept that apparently translated across species. The razor spine had been alone for months, isolated and terrified. Now it had found something resembling family. Ben pulled out his datapad and activated a sound file. A low-frequency rumble, recorded from wild razor spines on their homeworld. The creature's head snapped toward the speaker. Its spines extended slightly, not in threat but in attention. The sound played again. The razor spine responded with its own rumble, different in pitch and duration. Ben played another file. Another response. You're communicating, Yenna breathed. Basic stuff. Greetings, acknowledgments, emotional states. Razor spines aren't linguistic, but they're not silent either. They have a complex vocal system that researchers mostly ignored because they were too focused on the danger aspect. Ben played a sound that translated roughly to contentment. The razor spine's bioluminescence shifted to blue and it rumbled back, adding a trill at the end. What did it say? Yenna asked. Contentment plus question. Roughly means I'm happy. Are you happy? Ben played an affirmative response. The razor spine moved closer and laid down at his feet, a position of complete trust. Over the following days, other staff members started visiting the observation deck. Word had spread about the impossible creature that now napped peacefully in its handler's presence. Security Chief Brond came by, watched for 10 minutes and left without comment. His translator had been deactivated, but Ben recognized the tilt of his armored head. Respect. On day 12, Ben noticed something during the morning examination. The razor spine had a wound on its left rear leg, hidden under the spines. Not serious, but infected. The green discoloration around the edges meant bacterial growth. I need to treat this, Ben told Halvin over the comm. It'll require topical application and probably oral antibiotics. Sedation protocols? No, it'll let me handle it. Halvin's silence spoke volumes. Then, medical team standing by. Ben gathered supplies while Yenna prepared antibiotics. Back in the enclosure, the razor spine greeted him normally, unaware of what was coming. Ben sat down and patted the ground beside him. The creature laid down, head resting near his lap. I need to look at your leg, Ben said, keeping his tone conversational. It's going to hurt a little, but I'm trying to help. He placed one hand on the razor spine's flank, feeling the muscle tension beneath. With the other hand, he carefully moved aside the spines near the wound. The creature went rigid. Ben felt it coil, preparing to move. Easy, he murmured. Easy now. The razor spine's head turned, jaws level with Ben's arm. It could bite. It should bite. Instinct demanded that injured animals protect themselves from further pain. Instead, it rumbled. The sound was strained, uncomfortable, but not aggressive. Trust. Ben worked quickly. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic, applied antibiotic gel, and secured a light bandage. The razor spine trembled but remained still. When Ben finished, he scratched behind the creature's jaw ridge, a spot he had learned was particularly pleasant. The razor spine sighed, a very human-sounding expression of relief. Good, Ben said. So good. You're incredibly brave. Yenna approached slowly with the oral medication, a bitter-smelling liquid that would need to be taken daily for a week. The razor spine eyed it suspiciously. I know it tastes bad, Ben said, but it'll help. He held the container near the creature's mouth. The razor spine hesitated, then extended its tongue and lapped at the medication. Its bioluminescence flickered through several colors, clearly disgusted, but it swallowed. Back in the observation deck, Halvin watched with undisguised amazement. It allowed medical treatment without sedation, without restraints. It trusts us, Ben said simply. Trust is more powerful than any sedative. That night, Ben reviewed footage from the day. In one clip, the razor spine stood on its hind legs against the climbing structure, looking up at the observation deck. Looking for him, waiting. Yenna sat beside him, her datapad full of notes. The Galactic Conservation Board arrives in 6 weeks. This is going to revolutionize xenozoology. This is going to save lives, Ben corrected. Not just this razor spine. All of them. Every creature that got labeled as aggressive when they were really just scared. You care about them, Yenna observed. Deeply. Someone has to, Ben said. He looked at the sleeping razor spine on the screen. Someone has to see past the teeth and claws to the person underneath. The alarm started at 0300 station time, cutting through sleep like a blade through silk. Ben jerked awake in his quarters, disoriented. Red emergency lighting painted everything in shades of blood. The intercom crackled with multiple voices shouting over each other. Power failure. Multiple sections. Containment compromised. He was running before his conscious mind caught up. Through corridors that flickered between light and darkness. Past crew members evacuating toward designated safe zones. Against the flow. Toward the animal enclosures. Yenna caught up with him at a junction, her carapace pale with fear. Primary systems failed. Backup generators are cycling. The barriers are down in sections 4 through 7. The razor spine. Ben's voice was sharper than intended. Enclosure integrity unknown. Automated defenses activated before I could override them. Ice flooded Ben's veins. Automated defenses meant weapons. Meant the creature would be confused and frightened. Surrounded by perceived threats. Meant it would respond the only way a terrified predator knew how. They reached the animal wing to chaos. Security teams in full tactical gear blocked the corridor. Braun stood at the center, coordinating through multiple comm channels simultaneously. Emergency containment doors had sealed the section, but they could hear sounds from beyond. Crashing. The high-pitched whine of energy weapons. A roar that made the walls shake. Stand down, Ben demanded. Braun turned, his 3 eyes cold. There is a Class 9 predator loose in the facility. 7 people are unaccounted for. My teams are executing containment protocols. Your teams are making it worse. Ben pushed forward. Security personnel moved to block him. Listen to that sound. It's terrified. You're backing it into a corner. It has already injured 2 personnel, because they attacked it first. Ben grabbed Braun's armored forearm, forcing eye contact. Let me through. I can calm it down. You'll be killed. Then that's my choice to make. The stalemate broke when Halvan arrived, pulling himself along the corridor with frantic speed. Override his authority, he gasped at Braun. Let the human through. Director, I cannot guarantee his safety. And I cannot guarantee this facility's future if we kill the most valuable specimen in our care. Halvan's voice carried steel Ben had never heard before. Open the door. Braun hesitated for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then he signaled his team. The containment door began to open. Weapons down, Ben said. All of them. Nothing in your hands when I go through. That's suicide. That's trust. The door opened enough for Ben to slip through. He entered darkness interrupted by sparking electrical panels and flickering emergency lights. The sounds were louder here, crashing from somewhere ahead, the smell of ozone from discharged weapons, and underneath it all a sound that broke his heart. Whimpering. Hey, Ben called out softly. It's me. It's okay. A shadow moved in the darkness, massive and quick. The razor spine emerged from a side corridor. Spines fully extended, bioluminescence strobing red and white. Blood dripped from a wound on its shoulder. Energy weapon burn. Its eyes were wild with panic. Ben stood still. Didn't approach. Didn't retreat. Just existed in the space. The razor spine took 3 steps forward, then stopped. Its head swayed, disoriented. The sound of voices from behind the sealed door made it flinch and back up. I know, Ben said quietly. Everything went wrong. The lights, the sounds, all the scary things at once. And then people came with weapons and you didn't understand why. The creature's bioluminescence flickered, red to orange, orange to yellow. Recognition bleeding through panic. Yeah, it's me, Ben confirmed. He took 1 slow step forward. I'm right here. The razor spine rumbled, but the sound was broken. Pain and confusion and fear all mixed together. It swayed again, and Ben realized it might be in shock. He moved closer. 2 steps, 3. The creature could attack. Every logical part of his brain screamed that this was different, that trauma changed behavior, that even domesticated animals could turn violent under stress. Ben kept walking. At 2 meters distance, he stopped. "I need to see that wound. I need to help you." "Will you let me?" The razor spine stared at him. In its eyes, Ben saw the war between instinct and learned trust, between the animal that wanted to flee or fight and the individual that recognized a friend. Slowly, the creature's spines began to retract. Ben closed the remaining distance and placed his hand on the razor spine's jaw ridge. The creature leaned into the touch, trembling. "You're okay now," he whispered. "I've got you." Behind him, the containment door opened wider. Yenna slipped through with a medical kit. She moved carefully, making herself visible before approaching. The razor spine tracked her movement but didn't react aggressively. Together, they examined the wound. The energy weapon had grazed rather than hit directly, but it was still serious. Yenna worked while Ben kept his hands on the creature, murmuring constantly. The razor spine stood rigid, every muscle locked with the effort of staying still while in pain. "Clean hit," Yenna said finally. "It'll scar, but no permanent damage. I need to get proper supplies to seal this." "Bring them here," Ben said. "We're not moving it until it's stable." More people entered the corridor. Medical personnel, engineering teams to restore power. Halvin came through, surveyed the scene, and immediately started coordinating. Within minutes, they had established a field treatment area. The razor spine allowed itself to be tended to by multiple people, though it kept one eye on Ben at all times, checking, making sure he was still there. An hour passed. Power restored to the section. The wound cleaned, sealed, and bandaged. The razor spine's breathing steadied. Its bioluminescence faded to blue. Only then did Security Chief Brond approach. He carried no weapons. His armor was retracted, making him look smaller, more vulnerable. He stopped 3 meters away and performed a gesture Ben recognized from xenocultural databases. A Tauric apology, formal, sincere. "I was wrong," Brond said through his translator, "about many things." The razor spine watched him but didn't move. Ben nodded acknowledgement. "Get someone to check the other enclosures," he said tiredly. "Make sure the power failure didn't hurt anyone else." As teams dispersed to handle the crisis, Ben sat down against the wall. The razor spine immediately moved to lie beside him, its massive head resting on his lap, the same position they had shared during peaceful days in the enclosure, now repeated in a damaged corridor. Yenna sat on his other side, her antennae drooping with exhaustion. "You walked into a disaster zone unarmed." "I walked toward a friend who needed help," Ben corrected. "Most species wouldn't make that distinction." "Then most species have never had a dog," Ben said. He scratched behind the razor spine's jaw ridge and the creature rumbled contentedly despite its injuries. "Humans learned a long time ago that the pack protects its own. Doesn't matter if that protection is comfortable or safe. It just matters that you show up." The razor spine's eyes closed. Within minutes it was asleep, secure despite the chaos. Ben stayed awake, keeping watch, one hand resting on his friend's scarred shoulder. 2 weeks after the power failure, the razor spine's shoulder wound had healed to a shiny scar beneath its spines. The enclosure had been upgraded with triple redundant systems, and Ben had 17 messages from other facilities requesting his services, each one describing their own impossible animal. He reviewed them in his quarters while packing his worn backpack. Same belongings, different destination. The pattern of his life for the past decade, a knock at the door. Yenna entered carrying a datapad and something wrapped in cloth. Her colors were muted, sad in a way he had learned to recognize. "The razor spine has been agitated all day," she said. "It keeps pacing the observation window. Looking for you. It knows I'm leaving." Ben folded a shirt that had more repairs than original fabric. "Animals always know. You could stay. Halvin has authorized a permanent position, full benefits, your own research budget. You could study interspecies bonding, publish papers, train others." "I'm not a researcher," Ben said gently. "I'm a handler. There are animals out there that need help, and not enough people who know how to help them." Yenna set the datapad down. On the screen were requests from facilities across the galaxy. A thornback that attacked handlers, a crystalline drifter refusing to eat, a pack of void stalkers that had killed 2 trainers, each one labeled as aggressive or unmanageable or dangerous. These creatures have stories, Ben said, looking at the list. Same as the razor spine. Something happened to make them afraid. Someone just needs to take the time to understand. How do you do it? Yenna asked. How do you look at something that could kill you and see a friend? Ben paused, considering. On Earth, humans lived alongside predators for millions of years. We learned that survival wasn't about being the biggest or strongest. It was about reading intention. A wolf can kill a human easily, but our ancestors figured out that wolves weren't enemies. They were potential partners, so we learned their language. We showed them we could be trusted, and eventually we weren't two different species anymore. We were pack. He picked up the cloth bundle Yenna had brought. Inside was a carved stone pendant, etched with a design he recognized. A human and a razor spine side by side. The station commission asked for this to be made, Yenna explained. To commemorate what you've done here. You changed everything, Ben. Not just for one creature. For all of them. The Galactic Conservation Board reviewed our facility yesterday. They're implementing your protocols across their entire network. Ben traced the carving with his thumb. Did they give it a fancy name? The Torres method of interspecies trust building. Yenna's antennae twitched with humor. Very official. Sounds exhausting to say. The razor spine doesn't care what it's called. It just knows that for the first time since being captured, it felt safe. Yenna's voice softened. You gave it that. The ability to trust again. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Ben shouldered his backpack and picked up the pendant. Come on. I need to say goodbye. The enclosure was vibrant now, full of life and enrichment. The razor spine had claimed the highest climbing structure as its territory. A good vantage point to watch everything below. When Ben entered, it scrambled down immediately, moving with the enthusiasm of a creature half its size. Their greeting ritual had evolved over the weeks. The razor spine bumped its head against Ben's chest. Ben scratched behind its jaw ridge. They rumbled at each other in their improvised shared language. To outside observers, it looked simple. To them, it was profound. I have to leave today, Ben said. The razor spine's bioluminescence flickered yellow, understanding the tone if not the words. But you're going to be okay. Yenna will take care of you. So will the others. They know how to listen now. The creature pushed against him harder, trying to keep him close. Ben wrapped his arms around its massive neck, feeling the steady pulse of its dual-chambered heart. You taught me something too, he continued quietly. I've worked with hundreds of animals, but you reminded me why I started doing this. It's not about taming or controlling. It's about witnessing, about telling something scared and alone that they don't have to be scared or alone anymore. He pulled the stone pendant from his pocket and showed it to the razor spine. This is us, so I don't forget, though I don't think I could if I tried. The razor spine rumbled, a long, complex sound. Ben had learned enough of its vocal patterns to translate roughly sadness, but also understanding. Acceptance. Yenna entered the enclosure, moving with the confidence of someone who had learned from the best. The razor spine acknowledged her with a brief head bump before returning attention to Ben. You need to go, Yenna said softly. Your shuttle leaves in an hour. I know, but leaving was harder than he expected. The razor spine followed him to the enclosure door, stopping just before the threshold. It couldn't leave this space, but it could watch him go. At the door, Ben turned back. The creature sat on its haunches, spines relaxed, bioluminescence shifting through the full spectrum, every color they had shared. Red from the early fear, yellow from tentative trust, blue from contentment, and finally settling on purple, a color Ben had never seen before. What does purple mean? He asked Yenna. She checked her datapad, scrolling through their research notes. We don't know. It's never displayed that color until now. Ben smiled. I think it means goodbye. The good kind. The kind that isn't really ending, just changing. The razor spine rumbled one final time. Ben rumbled back. Then he stepped through the door. 3 months later, Ben stood in a different facility on a different station, watching a thornback pace frantically in an enclosure too small and too bright. The local director was explaining how impossible the creature was, how many handlers it had injured, how they were considering euthanasia. Ben barely listened. He was watching the thornback's movement patterns. The defensive posturing, the fear, I can help, he said. The director looked skeptical. Everyone says that. Then they see it up close and change their minds. Ben pulled out his datapad and showed footage of the razor spine. The creature that had supposedly been the most dangerous in captivity, now playing with Yenna in an enclosure full of life and trust. The director's expression changed from skepticism to something resembling hope. "How long do you need?" the director asked. Ben studied the thornback, saw the scared creature underneath the aggression. "As long as it takes." He touched the stone pendant around his neck, feeling the carved shapes beneath his fingers. A human in a razor spine, a reminder that the most dangerous monsters were often just the most frightened, and humans born from a world of monsters had always been uniquely suited to whisper softly and show those frightened creatures they could be something more than their fear. Ben smiled and started making notes. Another impossible animal. Another chance to prove that nothing was truly impossible when you led with trust instead of force. The work continued. The pack grew,